Welcome to the Chumps Football Podcast. I am Chad Wilson. Emil Calomino is not joining us live on the show today, but he will be a part of today's broadcast, so you will be able to get his picks. And we're pre-recorded in another segment, and this is going to be a quick show. We've got a lot going on. If you hear my voice and it sounds a little raw, that's because I was at Yankee Stadium yelling in Game 5, really thinking that the Yankees were going to win that one. I'm a diehard Yankee fan, for those of you who don't know that. I was there. We are clubbing home runs left and right early on in the game, and I'm a part of the crowd that's going wild. But at the end of the day, I really think the better team ended up winning, so the Dodgers came back in the game. Poor me had to sit through the Dodgers celebrating in Yankee Stadium another championship to go with the one they got in 2020, however you feel about that. But nevertheless, enough about all that. I'm going to jump right into things here right after I tell you guys, if you have not had a chance to do this yet, go ahead and subscribe to the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, whatever you're listening to or using to listen to the show. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'd appreciate to have you guys on each and every time we drop a show like this one. If you're new here, basically what we do here is pick games each and every week. I have top picks. Emil has top picks. This is in college football as well as in the NFL. We do both make this one pick calling off the she pick. It's basically a game that's not part of the Power 5 in college football. So I make one, he makes one. Emil's been doing really good with that. More on that later on. Then Emil is supposed to give a survivor pick. He did not do that this week, unfortunately. He and I, though, also do go head-to-head on one college football game and on one NFL game, and whoever wins the game gets to pick the game next week. I won both of those head-to-head matchups last week, so I get to pick the games this week, so we'll have that for you on towards the bottom part of this show. And I also pick a prop parlay, all right? So I pick 3 events from an NFL game that I think are going to happen, whether a guy's going to catch a touchdown or go over a certain amount, over or under a certain amount of receiving yards, rushing yards. Yeah, you guys know how this stuff works. So I do put in one of those. So I'll have that for you at the end of the show. But let's just jump right into things right here. We are going to go into college football. And first, we're going to have Emil's picks. And then I'm going to give you guys my picks for college football this week.
So it's time for the college football segment here. And last week we did pretty good for ourselves. Well, I did. You didn't. I'm just excited I'm not 1-2 again. I came through with the worst pick of the week. Let's start with the worst pick of the week.
You got to always start there, right?
Yeah, I thought it was clever because I figured, well, Central Florida shouldn't be laying 2 against Brigham Young. I mean, right?
We got tricked.
Apparently, I know somebody must have been hitting the crack pipe in Vegas because there was no real reason. Some guy with his spreadsheet and his degree from the Ivy League said, "Oh, I think Central Florida should be a favorite." Oh, we lost the camera there. That's no good. He said, "I thought Central Florida should be the favorite against BYU." No.
I think they just pick a game that they're going to troll the audience, the public with each week.
Yes, yeah. So that was no good. That was my loss. I got a winner on Alabama. I kind of saw that Missouri thing coming from a mile away. Chad's theory plays out there. Alabama scoreboard watching now. They're going to cover spreads. They're going to see they're going to do anything they can to backdoor this playoff. And then finally, the disrespect line. Duke got 12.5, lost by 1 in overtime. I give them credit. They went for the win. They said, we're not going to go into this silly start just going for 2 back and forth stuff. Let's go for the win. They didn't get it. They lost by 1, but that's fine. We won there. Chad, I don't know where you were all over the map last week because you were completely off the board. You had Eastern Michigan. They were given 3. You took a loss on that. They lost outright by 4.
Sucks when you go with those type of teams and they can't get it done, but
Yeah. Your Fresno State was a winner, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, the whole week for us in college football, a winning week was actually not riding on me this time because Chad's been really good the last few weeks. It was riding on Nevada out in Hawaii, and I have a feeling they got away from the Las Vegas.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah,
taking those
they
guys.
went out to Hawaii, and I think they partied. They found themselves on beaches, and then they went out, and the Rainbow Warriors took care of them. So you were 1-2. I was 2-1. Your record is sitting at 12-15, getting close to the break even. I'm still 10-17. I mean, when you go 1-2 8 weeks in a row, you got a lot of winning to make up for, and that segues perfect into what I'm going to do this week because I'm going to go 3-0. Okay, you ready, folks? I'm on some of the bigger games, or at least name teams this week. First, let's put it this way. If Penn State doesn't beat Ohio State this year, they may never do it in the James Franklin era. This is set up perfectly. This pick is not just based on 1 week of Ohio State for me. I saw the Oregon game, great game. I thought Ohio State would win it. They didn't. Okay. I saw them last week at home against Nebraska, and to me, Nebraska is about as close to my team, USC. Pretty good team. Make some stupid mistakes. We'll throw out the Indiana game. Maybe they were all high that day. But generally, Nebraska is not a bad team. Ohio State is losing that game in the fourth quarter at home. That concerns me. There's something missing from what I thought this Ohio State team would be, I think. And I think Penn State's set up to win this game. 2 good running backs, a top 5 pick defensive end in Abdul Carter, some good corners. I think this is set up for like a 26-20 Penn State win, and they're going to give me 3.5 at home. I wish it was at night and it was a whiteout. I'd feel better. Noon kickoff, not as much home crowd there as at night, but I like Penn State plus 3.5. Next one, folks, I want to be wrong here. We all know how I am, but I don't know who is hitting that pipe this week in Vegas. USC hasn't won a road game yet in the Big Ten, and they've found every possible way to lose them. I mean, they've lost 4 games, 3 of them on the road, in the last minute or in overtime. The home game was in overtime. They're going on the road against the 4-4 Washington team, essentially themselves. They're playing themselves on the road, and they're going to be a 2.5-point favorite? That doesn't make any sense. Give me Washington plus 2.5. And then finally, the aforementioned Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think that game is going to give them some confidence, not depress them. They went to Ohio State after getting throttled by Indiana, and they proved to themselves, no, we are a pretty good football team. And in comes the fixer of what, if you want to get healthy right now in the Big Ten, you march in the UCLA Bruins because they have the name recognition and Troy Aikman and all the guys, but that ain't your dad's UCLA. Okay, I think Nebraska wax them this week. So give me Nebraska minus 6.5.
All righty, summing it up. My man Emil here is taking Penn State, something he rarely ever does. I don't know if he recognizes that or not, but in their big game against Ohio State, he's taking them plus 3. He's going against his beloved USC Trojans, who are 2.5-point favorites at Washington. He likes the Huskies plus 2.5 at home. And then he is going to jump on with Nebraska as 6.5-point favorites in their contest. So that's it. All right, here's what I'm going with in college football this week, starting off with Friday night. I've had like a Friday night pick just about for the last 3 weeks here. But once again, going back after the Boise State Broncos, they cost me a loss last week, taking the victory away from UNLV. That was a nice nip and tuck game. But given that it was a very emotional game, a lot was put into that game. It almost felt like the conference championship and may very well end up being the conference championship game. Boise State must now go again and play what I think is a tough opponent in San Diego State. Now, this is not the best San Diego State football team you've ever seen. In fact, they're running around right now with a losing record at 3-4. But they are in every game that's not outside of, the former Pac-12 conference opponents that they faced. Yes, they faced Oregon State and California, and they were kind of handled in those games. Last week, took on Washington State and played a very good ball game, lost by 3 points. Prior to that, they'd won back-to-back games against Hawaii and Wyoming, and a very close game at Central Michigan. So I think San Diego State, especially given under these circumstances with Boise State coming off of the very tough game that they played last week, has a good chance to hang inside a very big number, which is 23.5 right now for Boise State. I think that's a lot of cheese to be laying on this game. And another thing is UNLV did kind of show a little bit of a blueprint to slowing down Ashton Genty. No, San Diego State is not UNLV. It's not as good of a defense, but it's a blueprint nevertheless. I think San Diego State's going to get in there and really force Boise State to try and do more things through the air to beat them. And I think that's going to be good enough to keep them inside of this very large number. So I'm going to grab San Diego State as a 23.5-point underdog. And again, this is a Friday night game. It is a game being played tonight because you are seeing this on Friday, hopefully, and you're not seeing it after the game. All right, I'm going to go for a couple early games on Saturday. Minnesota, who's been very, very tough lately, is every bit worthy of laying these 3 points against Illinois. Yes, I know Illinois is the ranked opponent, but Illinois is kind of losing steam here a little bit, and I don't think enough people are paying attention in Minnesota. They had some early season hiccups, and that maybe has drawn people off of them. Besides, people don't really pay much attention in Minnesota, but what they always are is a tough team, whether that is playing solid defense and running the football. These are two things that they do very well. And in this particular case, I think it's something that's going to work very, very well for them, especially against the Illinois team that's, suffered a letdown last week. I really think that they were humble. They were brought down to earth, and they might be feeling a little down on themselves. Illinois, I'm talking about. This is a prime opportunity for Minnesota to roll in here and grab a solid win in this game. Another feather, so to speak, for them to stick in their cap, and I think they will indeed do that. It feels kind of funny for Illinois, given the kind of season that they've been having, to be underdogs at home, so that would probably make you nervous doing this. A lot of times when you're nervous to make a play, that's probably the best time to do it. But last week, they really got exposed at Oregon, and sure, they would probably want to come back home and have all of this revenge. Sometimes it just does not work like that because, as I've told you, Minnesota's been a solid ball club, 3 straight wins, including wins against both of the LA teams, USC and UCLA. I know they're not having a great season, but those are very nice wins. And then they absolutely destroy Maryland, who's a pretty good football team. So I think Minnesota is a team tracking in the right direction. And don't be scared that they're laying 3 points on the road against Illinois. I think that's your move there. Two teams that would not be considered absolutely strong in the Big Ten this year is Northwestern and Purdue. These are not your top teams in the conference, but an opportunity being provided here nonetheless. Northwestern is a 3-5 football team, and they're laying a small number at -1 here in this football game. So you'd say, hey, man, at this point in the season, why are you wanting to lay points with a team that has a sub-500 record when they're out on the road? It's because they're playing Purdue, my friends. Yes, Northwestern is coming off of a really tough, I don't even want to call it tough. They got absolutely blown out against Iowa last week. And this is a team that still has some pride left. There's a couple weeks left of pride, and they're going to want to come back and battle hard here. I don't know that we have pride when it comes to Purdue. Purdue, folks, won their opener versus Indiana State, and then they have done nothing since. We're talking about 6 straight losses now, and especially after their last outing a couple weeks ago versus Oregon, where they were shut out 35-0. This Purdue team just does not have it. Defense is just not a thing for them. The last 3 games, they've given up 52, 50, 35. I don't feel very confident about Purdue being a team that could go grab a win right now. They've lost 6 in a row. Northwestern off of a loss, really trying to bounce back in that win column. I think they're going to be the more motivated and mentally suited team for this battle this week. And with them only laying a point, we just need them to win the game. We need them to do something to Purdue that they've just had done to them every week since September, and that is lose the game. So let's take Northwestern -1. Summarizing things, San Diego State on Friday night, +23.5. Taking Minnesota early on Saturday morning, -3 on the road against Illinois. And also taking Northwestern on the road, also an early start in the Big Ten on Saturday, -1 over Purdue. And that's our college football segment.
This is the only segment that's gone well for me this year, the off-the-sheet segment. I mean, as far as the college side, well, in any segment, really. I'm not doing well in the NFL. My off-the-sheets are always easy, okay? Because everybody knows I've got a man crush on one college football team that we consider.
We do, but you can go ahead and brag really quick about your record in the off the sheets, and you can let people know how not good I'm doing.
Well, yeah, I'm 4-0 off the sheet. So probably if there's one segment you want to stay with Emil here on off the sheet, for some reason I can find games that nobody gives a rat's rear end about that win you money.
They pay cash money.
Last week, my partner here took a very tough loss. UNLV plus 3.5. They lost that ball game by 5. They had a lead in the fourth quarter. They missed a field goal along the way, although it was a long one that would have probably helped them cover the spread. At the end of the day, they could have easily won this game outright. They didn't. So Chad took a loss on UNLV plus 3.5. This is not his strong segment yet. I think you're going to pick it up. Usually you've been good on this kind of stuff over the years. He's 1-3.
God years, yes.
I'm 4-0. My pick was simple last week. I wasn't on my man crush team last week. Last week, I just went against what I feel is one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in college football, and that's Kent State. I took Western Michigan minus 17.5, and I don't know what they win by 30-some. I mean, I forget the final score at this point, but
wasn't enough for the
Kent. It was 38-0 in the third quarter when I even stopped paying attention. So they won. I'm 4-0, and I'm going right back to the well this week. I'm on the team that I'm in love with, Army. Mm-hmm. Now, you say rivalry game, but I learned quick. My partner here got on the other side of this rivalry game, Air Force, earlier this year against Navy. And Air Force showed everybody what they are. I think Navy beat them 34-7 that day.
Yeah, and they weren't competitive.
And while I think Navy's a good, solid team, and we'll find out at the end of the year who's better, right now for me, I think Army is better than Navy. And defensively, they're better, and they can put up points. This game's going to get ugly. So give me Army minus 22.
Yeah, those planes aren't flying for Air Force. All right, so that's Emil's off-the-sheet pick. It's Army minus 21.5 against...
Oh, I picked up a half point there. Beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. And that's it for the off-the-sheet pick. His grand segment there, so... There you go. You have my pick. You have his pick. God bless. All right, my off-the-sheet pick this week is also a Friday night football game, and I am going to take a little battle in the state of Florida. No, it's not Miami and Florida State or Florida versus Florida State. It's 2 smaller schools. It's USF taking on Florida Atlantic in Boca, which is the campus of FAU. And this game features a South Florida team that has been tough this year. Yes, they've had a couple losses. They're 1-4 in their last 4 football games. But if you've watched this team play, this is a team that had Alabama on the ropes for quite some time. The final score doesn't really tell you what was going on there. And yes, we're not as impressed with Alabama as we thought we would be going into the season. But still, it is a battle against Alabama that they hung in there with. They did the same thing against the University of Miami. Again, the final score was a blowout, but it was more of what happened at the end of that game that led to that final score. USF was giving Miami all that they could handle, and this is now top-ranked, top 5 Miami that we're talking about. Yes, they had a couple of losses, but South Florida, when they're going in now to face an FAU team that they feel that they can beat, all the great things that we saw in that Alabama and that Miami matchup are on display here for South Florida. They're clearly the better team than the FAU team that they're coming to play. FAU, off of a couple of back-to-back losses, they are also 1-3 in their last 4 football games, and defense is nowhere to be found. This is just a little bit of a sign of a team kind of starting to mail it in, not feeling good about where they are, which is at 2-5 on the season. Their last 3 games, defensively, they have given up 38 points or more. I think that just speaks well for what South Florida is going to be able to do in this game. They'll be able to operate. They've got a nice little offense, shifty quarterback that can make some plays, and they've got some guys that can make plays as well when they get the ball in space. I think that's just going to help continue to fuel the misery for FAU on defense. So give me USF as a small 2.5-point favorite on the road here, just down the way as they come down to take on FAU. And again, that's a Friday night start for this off-the-sheet pick. Again, give me South Florida, 2.5-point favorites over FAU as my off-the-sheet pick.
Hey, sports fans, if you're looking to take your game day excitement to a whole new level, then you got to check out Bovada Sportsbook. Whether you're into football, basketball, it's baseball playoff times, pretty much any sport, Bovada has everything you need. Best odds, live betting, and fast, secure payouts. And here's the best part. When you sign up today, Bovada is giving you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's up to $250. That's free money to get you started just for joining the action. It's super easy to sign up, and they've got you covered with all the top games, player props, and more. Ready to bet, win, and repeat? Head over to Bovada and get in the game. Check out the link down in the description below, and let's go get those winners.
Well, the NFL was good to my friend here last week. Not so good for me, although I'm happy because I was on a losing streak. I just needed a win somewhere. Let's start with the good of last week. Chad was 2-1. Now, we'll start with his worst pick. I mean, I know you were trying to get cute there. Took Tennessee plus 11.5, and I'm watching that score roll in.
Hey, look, first series, Tennessee drive straight down there. I'm like, yes.
Well, I don't know if you paid attention, but Tennessee Detroit just hammered them on special teams.
No, they blitzed them like it was a blizzard just out of nowhere.
I mean, I'm looking at the box score. Detroit had some kid with like 3 punt returns for 150.
Yeah, it was unreal.
So the special teams coach will be unemployed soon. So if anybody's looking for one, check out the Tennessee Titans. I think he'll need a job. But anyway, that was your loser. Now, your other 2 picks were straight up quality. Okay, you took the Cleveland Browns. I mean, wow. That was a great pick. Outright.
Jameis came through for him.
Let me tell you something. I never root for any players to get injured. It's just not my thing. But if you're a Browns fan, you have to be. I think they traded up here. I know Winston has the ability to make a lot of turnovers, but at least he can push the ball down the field. They didn't have that.
He definitely did that. You know my rule with back.
Yeah, 2.5 games. So we'll see. He'll probably throw 6 interceptions in a game 4 weeks from now. But for the time being, Browns fans are happy. You're happy. You got a winner. And then the Raiders, very, very keen there. They played that game close. Then they got outside the number. They kind of backdoored it. Some questionable – Antonio Pierce has made some questionable goal line decisions. I mean, they were down 17-10 in the third. He was 4th and goal at like the 8 or something. I don't know where he should have taken the field goal at that point. And
most definitely. So he's struggling in that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The week before, he kicked the field goal when he should have went for the touchdown. So there's some game management decisions. But for you, there's no decision. You had a winner, 2-1. You got your record at 17-7. Listen, I didn't misspeak here, folks. He's 17-7 in the NFL.
To be at 70% this deep into the season feels like
it's insane. Now, me, I was fine until 3 weeks ago, and then I got on a losing streak. So I need to get a winner, and I got one with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it was barely, but it was kind of the way I felt that game would be. I just didn't think Green Bay would take them that seriously. And Green Bay kicked a field goal at the end and won the ball game. I felt Jacksonville could win the game, and they certainly could have. But that was a winner. My loss, and both of them were bad. I'm probably done with the Bengals this year, okay? They got a 10-3 lead in that ball game, and I'm thinking, good, I got a winner. From that point forward, they looked like a peewee football team on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, the Eagles dominated them. And then, I mean, Chad knows I've trashed the Cowboys since the preseason. But I figure, well, if you're not going to play this game, balls to the wall, you are trash. They're trash.
They weren't bad in the first half. It's just...
You know when I knew I was in trouble? I'm going to tell you something. I'm not kidding you. Coming out of the locker room halftime, they pick up McCarthy on the sidelines. And he's talking. I'm listening to what he's saying. He's going, we just got to clean some stuff up. They just made a few more plays than we did that half. I'm like, you're ahead. So I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, does he even know he's ahead? I knew I was in trouble. I said, this guy did nothing. This guy is so lost. He's probably working on his resume. Okay.
Well, they really interviewed Jerry Jones at the half. Isn't that what you do? Don't talk to the head coach.
I mean, I'm so done putting in energy or picks on this team. I will only go against them in the future the rest of the season. They're garbage. I was 1-2. I'm 10-14. I've got to get some winners, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to segue right into that and start with what I just said. Dallas Cowboys, we all watched them on Sunday night. They played out on the West Coast. They go back to Dallas. Now they're going to the East Coast. They're playing a pretty good Atlanta team. Got a good running back, a couple good receivers. Not a huge Kirk Cousins fan, but he's a competent NFL quarterback. Why would I believe the Cowboys can go in there and essentially win the game? They're only getting 3 points. The Atlanta Falcons need this game, And frankly, even in their losses, they've looked more competent than my Cowboys, as much as that pains me to say. And I'm not taking this Dallas team again. I like Atlanta. I really do. This isn't even a revenge pick. I like the Falcons -3. I just don't see Dallas getting their act together this week. Next one, the Washington Redskins. I'm not putting any more money in the cap. Won an amazing game last week. Anybody who didn't see the Chicago Bears totally mess up with, I mean, that was the worst Hail Mary play as far as how you defended since the LSU Kentucky game years ago. And anyone old enough will remember the LSU Kentucky game when the Kentucky coach was celebrating they were going to win the next thing.
Yes.
That was about the closest thing I've seen. It was a disaster. And I think when you win a game like that, you start to get the feeling that maybe we're a team of destiny. And there's no greater destiny than winning a game like that than if you're going to be on the road in your division, see the New York Giants in front of you coming off another tragic offensive performance on Monday night against the Steelers, short week, and you got a team full of confidence, top of the division, and it's only 4 points? Oh, sign me up. Give me the Redskins -4. And then finally, on the other side of that game, you've got the Chicago Bears. I don't care what anybody tells you, those things in sports, it could be any sport. Basketball, somebody throws one in from 75 feet away to beat you. Baseball, home runs, walk-offs, and stuff like that, it's hard to recover, especially immediately. The jar to your system is just, you're staring, we're 5-2, we're near the top of our division, and you go from that to, we just lost a ball game. We're in last place in a tough division. And now they have the Cardinals, who amazingly find themselves 4-3, 4-4, near the top of the AFC West with, coming off a win against the Dolphins. Give me the Cardinals -1. I think this is one of the easier ones on the board this week.
All right, summarizing Emil's picks for this week in the NFL, he's fading those Dallas Cowboys. He's like over it with them. He's taking Atlanta as the home favorites here, -3. He's going to take the Washington, as we call them on the show, Redskins on the road as 4-point favorites against the flailing New York Giants. And then finally, he likes Arizona to continue Chicago's woes and misery from last week. He likes them as 1-point favorites at home against Chicago. All right, NFL picks for me this week. I am going to keep hanging with the Las Vegas Raiders. They have gotten me victories over the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to keep flowing with it. Las Vegas keeps giving their hometown team a big number, and I'm just going to ride with it. Yes, I know they are playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who need a win. Joe Burrow has come out and said, we can't do what we did last week against Cleveland. And right now, folks, Cincinnati is not a playoff team. They're not a good football team right now. They've got a ton of issues defensively. They don't do enough offense to overcome what they're doing defensively, and they've got no business being a full touchdown favorite against anyone in the league right now outside of maybe a Carolina. Definitely not against a Raiders team that continues to be scrappy. Yes, they're not piling up the wins, but this is a tough football team that's taken on the personality of their head coach in Antonio Pierce. And again, they're not winning games, but they are coming close. They fight to the end. They're playing 60 minutes of football, and that's all you really need to do to have a chance to beat Cincinnati right now. Cincinnati is not a good team to be laying points with because they just can't stop people. So even if they were to get a lead of 10 or maybe 14 points in this game, the back door is always open. It's not the reason that I'm making this pick because I feel Las Vegas could very well win this game. But in the event that this game kind of gets away from us early, the back door is always open with Cincinnati because they're just not playing good defense right now. So that makes taking the 7 points with Las Vegas attractive, outside of the fact that the Raiders have netted me wins in each of the last 2 weeks. And I think I'm 3-0 with Las Vegas Raiders games this week. Another game that I'm going to take is we all saw the big Hail Mary with Washington beating Chicago on basically the last play of the game. It wasn't the last play of the game, but it's the last thing anyone remembers is the big Hail Mary pass. And yes, Chicago takes a loss. So people may think, maybe Chicago will come back and, they'll be mad and come out with a victory. Well, that's not always to lose in that fashion does have a lasting effect that can go on for another week or two. And there was so much surrounding that play, so much undiscipline, so many, bad decisions made by that coaching staff. And if there is one guy that really knows how Matt Eberflus's defense works. It is Jonathan Gannon, who coached under him as a DB coach in Indianapolis for several years. I expect him to have a really good game plan offensively against a Chicago defense coached by Matt Eberflus, basically. So I think there's some familiarity there that's going to work for Arizona. And Arizona's coming off of a very nice win. They've been able to pull some of those together this year. They've been a very Jekyll and Hyde team, but here they are at home. They're less than a 3-point favorite against the Chicago team that's teetering on whether or not they're a winning football team or not. Right now, they just seem like a losing football team. I can't see them coming off of what they did last week, going into Arizona and getting a win with the Arizona team that's hot right now. So give me Arizona, who's laying just 1 point in this game. I am going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 7.5-point underdogs against Philadelphia. Yes, I know Philadelphia went out and hasted Cincinnati last week. Don't get fooled by that, fans. I just gave you the rundown on Cincinnati. They're not a good football team right now. They don't play good defense. And so the Eagles were allowed to look really, really good against that. Yes, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in the lineup do make a difference for the Philadelphia Eagles, but not to the point of where I feel comfortable laying 7.5 points with them in a football game against a capable Jacksonville team. Have they shown that capability this year? Not very much. But when I say capable, I mean Jacksonville is a team that could win this football game. I would not be saying that if this was Carolina marching into town. They would have no chance, and I would feel very hesitant in grabbing the points with the Carolina team. That's happened several times this year, and I'm happy to say I laid off of Carolina, even though everything pointed towards them. They're just not that kind of team. It's not what we have here with Jacksonville. They're a team that can play some good defense. They can move the ball down the field if Trevor's on that particular day, and I think that's all you need. And I don't like the mindset of Philadelphia. I don't love the discipline in Philadelphia. So I would be very leery over their mindset off of a blowout win over Cincinnati. I just don't know that they'll put together a good week of preparation. They might overlook Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is a team that's still hungry. They're not out of things yet. They're not packing things up. We're still, relatively early in the season. And I think them as a 7.5-point underdog is enough motivation for them to come in, play a good game, perhaps even win this. So give me them as a 7.5-point underdog. So just recapping things, I'm going to stick with the Raiders once again for the third straight time, taking them as 7-point underdogs in this game versus Cincinnati. I'm going to take Arizona at home against, maybe a little depressed Chicago Bears football team. They're laying 1. So give me Arizona -1. And then finally, I'm going to take Jacksonville against what might be a little too giddy Philadelphia team. Jacksonville's a 7.5-point underdog. Give me Jacksonville plus 7.5. That's my NFL picks for the week. All right, it's head-to-head. And, hey, look, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I won both of these things this week, so I get to pick the games. And in college football, I am going with the Oregon and Michigan matchup. It's your classical Big Ten matchup, Emil. Isn't that crazy to hear that sound now? But Oregon and Michigan, which is something that is supposed to be designed for Rose Bowls, is now pretty much an every year type of thing. So Michigan is in the middle of a really bad season, especially coming off of, what they were able to accomplish last year. I guess there's a price to pay. You did lose your head coach. As a result of that, I could kind of say, but they've not treated the home crowd here to much this season. They've seen a couple of bad outings. I just don't think they're going to chuck up another one here. Oregon coming off of a couple big blowouts after the big Ohio State win. They are not on the spread watch list, and they've got a big one here against Michigan. Michigan has to take some offense to being 14-point.
I think my friend here has gotten himself a little. You're getting cute here. You're making this harder than it has to be. This is the Michigan-Texas game again, where everybody said, "Oh, yeah, Michigan's home." Here's the thing, right? How does Michigan score enough points in this game, even if Oregon plays sloppy for a half? I mean, have you watched Michigan's offense?
It's molasses, I know.
Listen, it's only able to move if they find a team like my Trojans who can't figure out that you could put 9 guys in the box, okay? They have USC figures that out. They probably have a win against Michigan. Lanning will figure that out, okay? And in short order, After he does, I see Oregon scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring. This really, really, really feels like 35-10.
I have a score in my head of 24-13 with the late points being scored by
You think
Oregon.
Michigan's down like 24-6 and backdoors this?
No, I see Oregon getting a late put it away touchdown.
Maybe. I mean,
That's how
this just feels to me like it's close for a while, and once Michigan makes a mistake, the floodgates open because I just don't think they can keep up with them. Listen, I've seen Oregon do that act, so I'm not saying you might be laughing at me next week. I've seen Oregon do the we're bored act, and I've won a few games this year on we're bored, but I don't think Michigan.
I'm thinking of one in particular at home against Michigan State where they couldn't cover the number. I don't see them covering this.
I think the helmets and the uniforms get them more excited in this one. Like, it's still Michigan.
All right, well, you have it. I say Michigan. He says Oregon. We're now on to the NFL, and we're going to go with the Monday Night Football game. It's a rematch of a Super Bowl from a couple of years ago. Not the same quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Speaking of which, that's the only mainstay that we have here because the wide receivers are out, and Baker Mayfield is going to have to put the team on his back. I will say this. I'm taking Tampa Bay in this game. They are 8.5-point underdogs in this contest, and I like some of what I saw, even though they didn't get it done last week. They got a very strong ground game. I think now they realize they're really going to need to rely on that. Two great running backs. They can play good enough defense, and Kansas City's kind of coasting along. They're an undefeated football team. They're not motivated to really go on any kind of a blowout binge here against Tampa Bay. And I kind of feel like Kansas City is going to play this the way they played some other games this year. It's close, nip and tuck, and, Mahomes comes up with a drive at the end, and maybe they win by a touchdown. That's not going to get you a point spread cover when it's 8.5. I think there's too much cheese on this pizza. They're overplaying the injuries for Tampa.
I think you're feeling confident because you won both of these last week. Listen, I got suckered by Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago against the Ravens. And yeah, they almost backdoored it, but they weren't really in that game. They're now 34.
You scarred by this? Is that what this is?
I'm not just scarred by it. Tampa Bay is allergic to defense. Even when they win, it's like that game they had 51-27 against the Saints. Pat Mahomes needs to get that offense right because the Kansas City Chiefs amazingly have become a defensive football team. They're like the Steelers of this era right now. Okay,
defense wins championships.
No doubt about it. But Pat Mahomes likes to win MVPs, and right now his numbers look more like Dak Prescott's. Okay, he's got to straighten himself out this week, and I feel there's no better team to do it against than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that defense. So I'm going to literally jump on the Kansas City Chiefs -8.5.
All right, that's it. That's our NFL head-to-head. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm grabbing the points. He's laying the chalk. He's going with Kansas City as 8.5-point favorites. And we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. Once again, folks, you have just got to figure out who it is you trust more in these games as we go head-to-head.